If you are hoping for an instant example as to what we're talking about with a retcon, I'll throw a name at you. Kane. This guy went from a dude who couldn't even talk to a drink-driving maniac who apparently was into dead bodies. It's quite the evolution, or devolution I suppose. It was terrible. There was also Edge and Christian who were literal brothers for a while until we just forgot about that. So let's sit down and grab our cups of cocoa and get into 10 of the best. Number 10, Charlotte Flair's NXT title reigns. If we do go back a few years, Charlotte was on Steve Austin's podcast and called herself a 13-time champion. Now this sent the internet crazy because literally weeks before this, WWE had shown a graphic on TV saying she was a 12-time champion. Who is lying to us? If we do sit down and figure it out, it's more like 15 because there were 6 with the old women's Raw belt, 7 as SmackDown Women's Champion, and she was NXT champ twice. That's 15. Don't hurt my brain. As it turned out, for some reason, we didn't care about NXT, so just deleted those. And as one of her Raw runs was when she held the Divas title, I do think we got rid of that too. It's also confusing. It is 2 + 2 = a potato. I mean, things happen, can't just pretend they didn't. Number 9, the first ever WWF Steel Cage World Title match. One of the main events of WrestleMania 2 was King Kong Bundy versus Hulk Hogan in a cage. To pick this up, the WWF sold it as the first time ever we'd seen the world title defended in the steel. And yes, this wasn't true. And sure, if you want to get specific, Hulk and Bundy had never done this before, but that's not what we were saying. The idea was to get you hyped about the first championship steel cage match in history, and yet we'd already done it before. Because back in 1982, Bob Backlund had done this thing at MSG when he took on Jimmy Snuka, plus you could watch that on TV. It's not like it was secluded for a live crowd. Just to make it more ridiculous, Bob had also done this a few weeks prior against superstar Billy Graham. Whatever sells a pay-per-view, I suppose. But my word, this was dumb. Number 8, Snitsky is undefeated. So here is a weird tie-in. I worked with Gene Snitsky on the Last Match musical recently. He even punted a fake baby as a tribute. What a world. The word undefeated is often branded around in wrestling though, and in 2007 it was for one Gene Snitsky. He had moved to Raw from ECW as we yelled that he hadn't lost, despite the fact we'd just seen him be defeated by Rob Van Dam via DQ. Please do not worry about that though. The commentary then began yelling that Snitsky couldn't be beaten as he ran through the likes of Val Venus and Super Crazy and squash matches, and this was all done for one big reason: the WWE wanted to pitch him as a threat against John Cena. This all happened too when Cena got the W, but of course it was via disqualification, so we're back here again. At least that popped the bubble because we couldn't go back now, and really we all know what was happening here. WWE didn't care about ECW. I mean, you could see that when you watched it. Number 7, the Big Boss Man's history. When the Boss Man first debuted, he was meant to be a nasty corrections officer who would routinely beat his inmates. That is not cool. From nowhere, he then discovered that the $1 Million Man was channeling funds illegally, so stopped that as he was a cop, and we all cheered. What about his behavior before all this though? Well, I have the answer. Flub you, don't worry about it. It also meant that when Nails arrived on Raw to start this feud, he was in the right. He was one of these prisoners who had been whooped by a policeman, so he had just cause to be mad. The point was, Vince McMahon had decided the Boss Man should be a babyface, so please don't think about this other stuff. In fact, look at that nice pony over there. We all listened as well, and looked at that horse. More fool us. The 6th, the McMahon Helmsley wedding. This was the original story, and don't get mad at me. I'm with you. It was bonkers. But in 1999, Triple H had seemingly drugged Stephanie in order to marry her, before it was revealed they were actually together, and they were going to whoop Vince McMahon's ass. In 2002, they then got a storyline divorce to tie into that year's Mania, when we got to 2003, and they wed for real. I hope you're keeping up with this. Because this wasn't part of the narrative though, and WWE wanted to use it. We just forgot anything that had happened before all this, and acted like they just got married. What the hell is happening? Since this moment too, 2003 has always been used as the date of their marriage, even though on screen, they hitched up 4 years earlier. This is when the merging of the narrative and reality goes totally off the rails. Although I do get this, however. Which would you pick given the circumstances? Exactly. Number 5, The Big Show is Stephanie's childhood hero. Stephanie McMahon was born on the 24th of September 1976. White, on the other hand, came into this world on the 8th of February 1972, so there's roughly 4 years between them. It's why when Steph walked out onto TV in 2013 and said The Big Show was her childhood hero, people were confused. It would mean she was a child of his when he was a kid. The lines got blurrier as we sold this as McMahon's seeing show as the second coming of Andre the Giant, which was her actual favourite as a kid, So why don't you just say that? There was a horrible edge to this as we were essentially gaslighting the Big Show to do the authorities' bidding. But if you were into maths, by the time White debuted in WCW, Stephanie was a teenager. And sure, maybe this was the trick, but shouldn't the flipping Big Show have been able to work it out? I did, and I'm stupid. As we have touched on both, let's throw this in there too. WCW pretended that the Giant was Andre's son. Good gosh. Number 4, who really created the Elimination Chamber? Today there is only one man credited with the building of the Elimination Chamber, Triple H. It was his nod to WCW's War Games, but here we go again. Let's return to 2002 as that goes against everything we just said. For the then Raw GM was Eric Bischoff, and as we headed into that year's Survivor Series, he had to come up with a horrible idea, and he did, the Chamber. He sold it like it was going to be the next Raw Rumble or Hell in a Cell to get people interested, so you can't miss this, especially because the world title was going to be put on the line. Now, of course, this was our on-screen story, but that's the point of this list. As soon as Eric wasn't part of the company anymore and Hunter was the man, we switched gears. Now it was the game that made this, and don't say otherwise. I don't think we even mentioned Eric and the Chamber together anymore, and we'll probably never show a video clip again. That is history done and dusted. Number 3, the first time ever WrestleMania match. So if you watch any of my stuff, you will have heard me moan about this before. This one drives me nuts. Because back in 2011, we had that cool segment when Triple H and The Undertaker stared off and made a WrestleMania match without saying a word. It worked. We could have just left it there as people were pumped for this, but no. We started selling it as the first time clash at the show of shows, just forgetting what had happened at WrestleMania 17. That's right, that match was really good too, although WWE is to blame. The rumor has always been that they finished the card for that event and realized Triple H and Taker weren't booked, so just throw them together. As time has gone on too, this 2001 clash has just been downplayed, so it basically doesn't exist, so we must keep it alive. I really like this fight. Why the hell are we trying to bury it? Number 2, Vince gets the F out. The Ruthless Aggression Era network documentary that was launched in 2020 is a fun watch. It does muck around with history, but they always do that. Gotta take it with a pinch of salt. The absolute clanger, however, was when we said Vince McMahon changed the name of the company from the WWF to WWE in 2002 because it was time to go in a new direction. That is categorically not true. The real situation, as it was covered in the news, was that the World Wrestling Federation had violated their agreement with the World Wildlife Fund, got sued and had to make a shift. That's what happened. It was on the BBC. The only reason we did the Get the F Out campaign is because there was no other choice, and trying to spin that one is way too far. Just don't say anything. It takes one Google, and if I were the Pandas, I would kick off again. They did nothing wrong, and they got dragged through the mud for a second damn time. Number 1, the original NWO logo. This is a blink and miss it moment because as Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were running wild over WCW in 1996, they did indeed get Hulk Hogan on board and form the NWO, and then it was carnage. I think a lot of this may have been decided as we went too because the first logo was a giant N, a giant W with a big O surrounding the 2. So really it looked like ONW. That doesn't sound as good. It certainly wasn't edgy and looked like something you'd see on the news when thankfully it did get changed. This was so fast nobody remembered it, even though it tiptoed onto some TV shows. You can see this picture from an August 96 Nitro though, so we were trying. It was just wrong. That's the truth. This was still a whole month after Bash at the Beach though. Imagine a universe where it actually did look like this. Maybe it would have changed anything, because I'm just going to say, as we are at the end of the video, it sucks. Know of any other characters or gimmicks that have gone through a retcon? Make sure you do let me know in the comments below before you like the video, share the video and subscribe. And if you would like to hear me yell about WWE some more, click that video on the screen. I also want to thank you very much for your time because I do appreciate you coming. Make sure you have a lovely day and I'll talk to you on the next one.